Today on the Chat and Chew Show,
I made a decision to lose my virginity at a very young age. I was actually 13 years old, and I didn't know. No one told me anything other than don't get pregnant. And so when I started having an interest in a boy, I thought that was what you were supposed to do to show him you love him.
Self-conscious, peer pressured, confused. Does any of this sound familiar? If not, just think back on your teenage years. None of us quite knew who we were nor what we were meant to become. And it took a special kind of guidance to get through to our semi-developed selves. Today on the Chat and Chew Show, we are joined by Scherrie Cooper, the founder of Honeybee University. At Honeybee University, Scherrie teaches teen girls to embrace who they are called and created to be, using workbooks and virtual classes to creatively reach her audience. Scherrie has spent over 15 years serving in youth ministry and currently serves as the youth director at her local church. She is a teen girls self-esteem coach and positive body image coach, certified by the Case Institute under Dr. Chantel P. Jimenez. A wife of over 21 years and mother of 3, Scherrie describes herself as a woman who loves God and loves to learn. She has a passion for studying identity, inner healing, history, and apologetics, and for helping others by sharing her personal journey. Buckle up, Chat Tribe, as we venture through what you wish you knew as a teen.
here we go. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Chat and Chew Show. My name is Betty.
And I'm Roxanne.
And we are super thrilled that you decided to join us. As you guys know, the Chat and Chew Show is designed to empower you to do your relationships better. And all of us are in a relationship. And not just romantic relationships. We are aunties and mothers and grandmas and sisters and best friends and enemies.
Oh, okay.
And if we're honest, sometimes it can be difficult. You can run into a snag in your relationship. And so we want to give you what you would need to just really make your relationships better, to improve your relationships. And so today we have an exciting show with us. We have a special guest who has started an organization where she works mostly with teen girls. And we're going to talk to her after the break. So stay tuned. This show is going to be fantastic.
Hi, everybody, and we are back. And as Betty mentioned, we have a great show for you today and a very, very special guest, Miss Scherrie Cooper. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How are you today?
I feel great. It's a beautiful day.
Nice, nice. I'm loving that painting behind you. It's gorgeous.
Yes, Queens. That's what I celebrate 24/7, Queens.
Yes, yes. And you are the Teen Girls Self-Esteem Coach. I love that name.
Yes, yep. And I'm also a positive body image coach for teen girls as well. That's important.
Wow. So Honeybee, so how did you even get into being a teen girls coach, motivator, all of that? What sparked that in you?
Sure. So back in the day, probably almost 10 years ago, I had this sudden burden for girls in my local community. I remember I had started remembering what it was like being in high school and how hard it was for me. I had struggled so hard with insecurity and people pleasing and peer pressure, a lot of those things we go through, but it just seems so devastating. And because of those things, I really made some poor decisions in my life that affected me later. And I wanted to do something to maybe, help another young lady not make some of the decisions that I made, as a teenager and a young adult. And so what I decided to do, I wrote down a vision of what I wanted to do. And I started by just reaching out to young teens in my community. I was living in an apartment complex and I knew some of the girls. And I just said, hey, I wanted to have a little get together. Would you come? And so I rented out the local rec center and I started with 9 girls and we just had a conversation over pizza and ice cream. And that's how we got started.
Nice.
Right.
I love that you just started too. Like, let's just have a thing, get together and do this and see how it goes. I love that.
Yeah, I can't tell you honestly that I knew what I was doing. At that time, I didn't have, much education in the area. I just had a desire to help. And so that's what I did. And it evolved into what we know now is Honeybee University.
Wow. Wow. I wish you were around when I was a teen girl, because as you were talking, I went straight back to high school in my mind. And I just remember, how I felt in myself. I was overweight. Yeah. I was an introvert. And I grew up in Los Angeles and I went to Los Angeles high school. And so everybody was beautiful. And everybody was a cheerleader and everybody wore the best clothes. And I was a overweight, poor young lady, and just felt terrible, about myself. We were talking before we started running the cameras. If someone was around like you when I was growing up, I would have been so much better and further in my life right now. If someone could have just looked at me and said, hey, you're good at this, or you could do this, So what you do is fantastic.
Yeah, I love what I do. And, being in high school, even in middle school, people can be so cruel and it can be a devastating time for some. Some have a blast in school and in some it is like very challenging. Yeah. And so I want it to be like a safe place, Yeah. I'm not here to judge you. Let's just kind of hang out, have fun. You can share whatever's on your mind and let's talk about it. Yeah. And so that's pretty much what I do. Yeah. And it's cool. It's not always easy because sometimes there are some hard topics sometimes, but
So why are you calling it Honeybee? I love that, by the way. University though.
Yeah. So actually that name came from a woman in the Bible. Her name was Deborah. And so when I read about Deborah, she was like this really amazing woman, right? But one of the things that she did is she pointed a younger generation back to the principles of God. So when I looked her up, her name meant honeybee. And I was like, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want to point my generation back to God, back to doing the right things, back to, just having love and freedom in their life. And so that's where the name Honeybee came from. And so since it's like a university where we, I do classes, I do workshops, I'm like, well, that's what we do. So that's where Honeybee University comes from.
Oh, wow. Wow. I love that.
Me too. Oh my goodness. And also I was thinking too, like even as an adult recently, I've been thinking about how there are so many opportunities to judge ourselves now. We have so much data, like to how many steps we're taking, how many pounds, how many likes, followers, all of so much data to judge ourselves. And so I can't even imagine as a teenager where you're already confused about what's going on with your body and who you are, to still have the judgment on top of that. Like, I just think what you're doing is so necessary. So thank you.
It's so much. I mean, it was a lot when I was growing up, but now it's so much information. Social media is one of the biggest influences of our lives today. And so it's just a lot for us, but you can imagine for young teenagers. So, people like me and, we just do what we can to just try to love on them and to be a safe place for them.
Yeah, I love that term, safe place. In fact, at our church, that's kind of our thing. We say we're a safe space, so that, because a lot of times, like we're saying, especially with, teenage girls, they don't have a lot of experience in life, but they do have this, like we're talking about body image and kind of confusing, like, who am I? What am I good at? And you're looking at social media and you're comparing yourself to everybody who's on there. And you're like, God, I'm not this, I'm not that. And and it makes you feel some kind of way, which prevents you from moving forward, in life. So I don't have any girls in my home. I'm raising boys.
Yeah.
But how about you? Do you have girls in your home?
So I have a daughter. All my children are young adults now. So I have a daughter. At that time, she was a teenager.
Okay.
She's 24 now. And I also have two sons. And 22 and 20, wait a minute. Yeah, 22 and 19.
Wow.
So they keep me hip,
Okay, right.
So they're great.
Yeah. So now you talked a little bit about, some things that you went through as a teen girl. Do you mind just talking a little bit in more detail, if you're comfortable, about kind of what you went through?
Sure.
So I think I always like to just remind our guests that, your story can help someone.
Absolutely.
See where you were and then what God is doing in your life nowadays. But okay.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I did as a result of not knowing who I was is that I made a decision to lose my virginity at a very young age. I was actually 13 years old. And I didn't know, no one told me anything other than don't get pregnant, And so when I started having an interest in a boy, I thought that was what you were supposed to do, to show him you loved him. And so I remember how it happened. And it was, I wasn't sure. I was scared. I was, I didn't want to seem like a little girl, but I was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my girlfriends, they were pushing me into it. Go ahead, we gonna go with you, and so I went, and I remember it was like a half a day or something. And I went with him, and my girlfriends went with me. And, and next thing I know, I was, giving myself away. And I remember it, it was like 5 minutes long. It was nothing beautiful, nothing that, the movie showed or
right.
TV show. And I remember when it was over, I remember going into the bathroom and having to clean myself up, because I was bleeding, if I could say that. I was bleeding, and I toilet tissue, trying to clean myself up, and it's mushy, and I had tears in my eyes. I'm a complete mess, and I feel nasty. I feel like trash.
Yeah.
And I remember after it was over, him kind of dismissing me, like, okay, bye, and my friends just kind of walking with me. I'm sharing with them everything that happened. And so the very next day I go to school. Everybody knows.
No.
Everybody knows. I found out, of course he told it, but also my friends were telling it.
Oh.
So it trashed my reputation at school.
Oh my gosh.
And I just remember feeling like, oh my God. And what could I do? All I wanted to do was be transferred. I couldn't tell my mom, I
was going to ask, where was your mom? I mean,
she was, she was home.
Right.
I wanted to talk to her, but I felt that I would get in trouble.
Right.
I felt she would get me.
Yeah.
She probably would have. I don't know, looking back. But I remember feeling like I don't have anybody to talk to. I don't know what to do. And my friends had betrayed me. That's how I felt. And so I remember just having to go through this school year being called names. I was called a whore, a hoe. Well, they call them thoughts now, but I'm called all these different names.
Wait a minute, what do they call them?
The way I understand is thought. Is that THOT? I think that's a thought. And so they didn't call me that, but they called me a lot of other names, during that time. Yeah. And that's a story that I share a lot with young women, because it's important. When you don't know who you are, you just kind of do what you think is right.
Yeah, I think so many thoughts were in my head when you were saying that, because I'm like, as a young lady, somebody's showing interest in you, first of all, and you're like, oh boy, and then you have nowhere to go except, I always say this, and I don't mean to say this about your friends, but your dumb friends tell you, to do stuff. and you're like, okay, this sounds right. You know, you go and do it. And then the betrayal that you experience from not just the guy, but also from your girlfriends at 13, that could be overwhelming. You know what I mean? Like man, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not only that. Sorry. No, I was gonna say, not only that, is just none of you know how important that act is at that time either. So all of this, you're kind of, everyone's treating this kind of like arbitrarily, like, you know, sex is just this random thing. Because we've all just watched, like you said, TV. We thought, like you thought it was gonna be magical because of TV, and everyone talks about it freely because they're just trying to figure it all out, but not realizing how important that is to, you know, like that exchange is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I didn't know. I mean, people didn't talk about it like that, you know. And like I said, I think the biggest thing was you're not supposed to get pregnant. You know, don't get pregnant. Don't get pregnant.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was one of those things. I mean, at that time, it felt like the most devastating thing ever. You know what I mean? It was the hardest thing to go back to a school to be ridiculed, and you know, and so I didn't know, you know, I was 13, you know, I was a kid. And so what I try to do is I tell other 13-year-olds, you know, hey, this is not what you think it is.
Right.
You know,
I'm just reminded too of something that I heard that, you know, I could see why now you're doing Honeybee University, because our pain propels us to our purpose. You know, it's like what have pained you. And for anybody who's out there who's listening and there is a pain that you're dealing with, it could be something that can propel you to your purpose, you know, to move forward, to help someone else in. But yeah, that is huge. That is huge. Again, I'm just thinking like, man, if I was 13, I would really want somebody in my life, you know, who could point, a trusted adult who can appoint me, you know, somewhere else, you know, to a better situation.
Absolutely.
Good. That is huge. So we're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, I'd love for you to talk to, you know, other people who are out there, parents, moms in particular. I don't know why that is in my head right now, but moms who are raising, you know, teenage girls, some things that they can pass on to them.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. All right. So we'll be back in a moment.
Now, a delicious word.
Hey, it's Carla, aka Home Cook K, and I'm excited to be in my humble kitchen with a new addition, a new stove. The last one wasn't as reliable, like it didn't turn on, so I'm grateful for this new one. So, today's recipe is one that I've made the first time a few days ago. When my husband walked in the house, he said, it smells like fall. The nutmeg and cinnamon in this baked apple recipe is perfect for the season. And apples are in season now, and if you're lucky, you live in a location where you can visit an orchard and pick your own, or grab some at the farmer's market. Fresh apples always have better flavor. To start this recipe, I preheat my oven to 350 degrees and set out 6 apples. I use a variety of apples to create a robust flavor. You want to make sure you have a mix of tart apples as well as sweet ones. I peel and core the apples and then thinly slice them into even pieces so they bake consistently. Next, I add the apple slices to a 9 by 13 inch baking dish and add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1 tablespoon of coconut oil, 2/3 cup of cane sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, 3/4 teaspoons of grated ginger, a pinch of nutmeg, 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, 3 tablespoons of water, and a pinch of sea salt. I then cover it loosely with foil and bake it in the oven for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, I remove the foil and bake it for additional 10 to 15 minutes uncovered. And you're done. Now you have a delicious dish that can be topped with whipped cream or added to vanilla bean ice cream. We decided that this recipe tastes just like the inside of a delicious apple pie. So if you're watching your carbs or gluten-free, it's the perfect dish for you. I hope you enjoy.
Okay, so we are back, and we are talking with Miss Scherrie about her I guess like team mentoring and just everything that got her started, what motivated her to do that. And Betty, you also had a good point about like your pain can bring you to your purpose. You know, some of the things you go through can propel you into really like helping someone else out and making a big difference there. But we want to get into, Scherrie, what are some things that, you know, we're thinking mothers, but I guess anyone raising teen girls, some things that they can do.
Well, first I want to say, just don't give up.
Oh, that's good.
Don't give up on your baby, because I know sometimes raising teenage girls can be a lot, you know, especially in this kind of culture. But I just want to encourage you, don't give up. Just know that there are people out there that are on your side and with you. I would like to, you know, what some of the things that I do is, if I can just show you, I created this workbook right here. And it is named after the character, my story that I just told you about. And so what I've done is I've created these stories about my teenage life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And, you know, how do you move forward in some of the decision making? And so I have found that a lot of parents love this workbook. And I had a teenage girl tell me, hey, I read it all in one day. It was great. You know, and so this is a resource that I offer. And it basically it's real. You know, I tell the truth in this book. You know, I tell you what I've done and some of the things that I've gone through, and, you know, and what you can do to avoid that. And it's really a book about just learning to love you and know who you are. And I have found that when you find out who you are, you won't always make poor decisions, because you'll find value in yourself. And so definitely think that my book, Queenie and Diary of a Young Queen, are absolutely great resources for you. You can also, I have a website called honeybu.co. And on there are my workbooks. And I'm also very excited to announce that I have some online classes coming beginning in May 15th. And so feel free to take advantage of that. And there's some other free resources there. So I hope that will help some of our moms or those who just, you know, looking for some information.
Yeah. So what would you tell a mom right now who is like, I have a 15-year-old. She's been in the house, you know, for a year doing home, you know, Zoom school. Things are opening up now, and she's starting to talk to, you know, a little boy, and they want to go out. What would you say to her, the mom or the dad, to say to this daughter?
Well, I first would say, if you can, and I know it's not easy for parents, but if you just take a step back and remember what it was like being 15. Just remember, and be a safe space where, you know, sometimes teenagers, they feel like they can't come to their parents. That was one of the challenges I had. Be that parent where your children feel like they can come to you. Make them know, let them know that they can come to you with the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think that if you can create a relationship with your children, to have that openness, you will definitely, you know, you would definitely be able to avoid maybe some of the pitfalls that other teens have gotten themselves in, because a lot of times it's just not communicated to your children, you know, why you shouldn't do certain things. Like we talked about, nobody told me, you know, and sometimes, you know, well, let me just say this. If you don't talk to your children, somebody else will.
Yeah, that's true.
So make sure that you have that space of communication, and let them be able to come to you with anything without you falling apart, without you yelling, screaming. Be a safe space.
I think adding to that, because my husband has done youth work forever, and I have a 25-year-old son now too. And is that sometimes parents will preach their children down as opposed to listening. You know what I mean? So if your daughter, son even, comes to you and it's like, hey mom, what you think about you? Then you automatically go into this kind of thing, and they're just like, okay, you know what I mean?
No, you ready?
Let them talk and getting it out, and like you said, what you said, without going crazy. And my son has over the years have come to me and said stuff, and I'll be like, calm down. Because you be wanting to like, boy, what you talking about? You want to kind of go there, but then that shuts them up, So mom, dad, if you're out there and you're listening, if your child is coming to you and trying to talk, let them talk.
Yeah.
Listen, you listen. And I would say too, because I'm a Christ follower, pray while they're talking.
Oh, yeah. Always
ask the Lord to give you the words to say, because you don't want to run your child away in crucial times. You want them to be able to come to you with very important things.
Absolutely. I think it reminds me, when you said that, it reminds me of this scripture that says parents don't come down too, well, I think it says fathers, but it's talking about parents. Parents don't come down too hard on your kids, because it will crush their spirit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think sometimes we sometimes do what our parents did. And, sometimes our parents, I know in my generation, parents would just be kind of like, they would drop the bomb on you, because you didn't have a lot of open conversations.
Yeah.
And so, but let's not come down on them too hard. What I mean? Let's, like you said, listen. And I just think if we can do that, we will see better results and better relationships.
Yeah. I think listening to your kids, not overreacting when they do tell you something, I think another one that, and you can speak to this too, that a lot of times adults in front of teens want to appear that they're perfect. Yeah. Like, I never, oh, you did that. You know what I mean? And they got as much junk in their closet.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
You might just speak to that about
transparency is important. Transparency is important. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it's important if you're gonna have good relationships, transparency is key. And that includes with your kids. I had to talk to my kids about sex and things like that at a very early age. I wanted them to feel like they could come to me, they could talk to me. I know that I'm not perfect, I've made mistakes, but I've tried to, make an effort where they feel like they could come to me. And so, and I have shared I've shared my life with them too. I've shared my stories with them too. I'm a youth director at my church. And, one of the things I have to do there is I have to share my life with them too.
Yeah.
You know, and so I have found though that when I do that, when they get in trouble or they feel like they need help, they will come to me. And I think part of that is because I've been transparent and I've shown them that I can.
Yeah, that's huge. I think transparency, because it seems like this generation, at least with my son, he's like, Mom, we know when somebody being fake. We, and it's a big turnoff,
Yeah, and not only that, it puts pressure on the child to think they have to be perfect. Like you said, Scherrie, like they come to you when they mess up because they're like, oh, okay, people make mistakes and that's okay. But I think when you're like the perfect parent, your child now feels like they have to be perfect, and they're like, they feel like, oh, I can't come to you if I mess up because you're perfect. You'll be disappointed in me if I mess up, and so it's another breakdown of communication.
Right.
Very valued.
Yeah, I love what you said at the very beginning. Is like, don't give up.
Don't give up.
I have that experience with my son. I know we were talking about girls, but my son, since he was little, was always in trouble.
Yours too?
Oh my gosh. So we up here working with youth and this and that, and he up there. Anyway.
I already know.
So so I just never gave up. I ran into this scripture where there's a family in the Bible who the child was, the Bible said he was demon possessed. I think he was having seizures. And they couldn't heal him. And Jesus said, bring the boy to me. And that little phrase just stuck with me. Bring the boy to me. And since I ran into that passage, since he was like in early elementary school, my prayer and my thought was, I'm just going to bring the boy to Jesus. Like, I can't fix him. You know what I mean? I just have to be patient with him and not to give up. Now, my son has a lot of life ahead of him, but he is doing really well now. But because in those early days, you're looking at this child and you're like, I don't even know, my child about to go to jail. What is happening?
Oh yeah, I love it. And I love that scripture because it shows there's hope. You know, there's hope. And with God, there's always hope. And that's one of the things I love. And I laugh because when you say my child, you know, I have a son that, oh my goodness. You know, I would put him in church and the church would be calling me. Your son did this, your son said that. And now I'm embarrassed. I'm like, I don't know where he got that from. You know? You know, and you know, and he used to get into so much trouble. And I would just feel like, I don't know what to do with this kid.
No, man, that is so like, oh, I didn't even know how to explain it. But don't give up.
Don't give up.
You know, like think about when you were a young person.
Oh my goodness.
You know, that hopefully there are people in your life who didn't give up on you. You know, they just hung in there with you, you know, the thick and the thin. I think moms have the ability to do that anyway.
They do. Moms are great. Dads are great too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Everybody's great. You look back on your life and you're reminded of some of the people, you know, that came a long way, that did try to encourage you. I believe God will send people to do that. I believe I'm maybe a person in someone's life to do that. So you're absolutely right, but we can't give up on our young people.
And one of our listeners, you might be, you know, feeling this tug, you know, you should think about maybe mentoring, you know, a person behind you. You have so many lessons that you could, you know, give someone that could really, really change the trajectory of their life, you know. But a lot of times we kind of just are in our own worlds, but you're reminding us, you know, get out of your own world, so you know, for a little bit at least, you know, and think about how you can pour into someone else's life. It can make like a huge difference in their life. So thank you, Honeybee University.
Thank you so much, ladies. I had fun.
Good. So tell our audience, I know you already mentioned, but tell us where they can find you on your social media and all that stuff.
Sure. So my website is honeybeeyou.co. So just like honeybee, like the regular spelling, .co. And you can find me on IG at honeybeedmb and on Facebook at honeybeeyou. Okay. And so I'm around.
Okay. All right. Good.
You can learn more about me there on those pages. And if you have any questions, my contact information is there as well.
Great. And Roxy, you want to tell them where they can find us?
Sure. If you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe here or there or wherever the button is. And then also click the bell to get notifications. And you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Chat and Chew Show. Regular spelling. Thanks again, Scherrie, for joining us. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Roxy. Thank you, Betty. I really appreciate it.
And we will see you guys next time. Take care.
Right.
Bye.
This episode is brought to you by the Chat and Chew Company. Host Betty Jones, co-host Roxanne Brew, producer Vanessa Outland, and music by Elwood Jones.